garden is all in. And all we have to do now is weed. All we have to do now is weed. Yes, weeding. I thought we could review some of the tricks that I tried over the winter to get things started early. So in my first video, I was starting stuff inside, and I was using the little Tupperware container as a mini greenhouse, and for sure that worked. I did find that to be really helpful for keeping the started plants humid, so that they didn't dry out before they had a chance to sprout. In the second video that I did, we talked about the GAHT system, G-A-H-T, Ground Air Heat Transfer System. Now I had built it the year before, but I didn't really get it running until later in the season, and I had shut it down over the winter. So the second video was when I started it back up again, and that was that March? I'll try and put up here what date that was. I cannot say definitively that it had an effect, and the problem this year, I'm sure, at least the problem for me not being able to say for sure that it worked, was that we had no sun. This was the grayest winter and the grayest spring that I can remember since we moved here. And this is supposed to be the sunniest friggin' province. Well, okay, Alberta's probably the sunniest friggin' province, but we're the second sunniest friggin' province. So because we got so little sun, the greenhouse itself, the air never really heated up in there, so it never triggered the thermometer. Thermostat. Why do I always say thermometer? The thermostat. So it never really pumped an awful lot of heat into the ground. Now it did occasionally run, of course, and I did have a thermometer. Hey, it actually is a thermometer in the output tube. I got one with one of those probes so that it could stick all the way down, well, as far as I could make it go, and it was always above zero below ground. I'll have to do some tests in the winter to find out what the actual expected temperatures are, because it's irrelevant to know what the temperature is if you don't know what it would have been if you had done nothing. So, GAHT experiment, I'm still glad I did it, and I think it still has merit. I think I just didn't have a very good year to test it out. And it ran for free, so who cares? The third video was the one where I didn't actually build anything new, but I planted on the north side of the greenhouse, hoop house, and yes, those plants definitely did well. I was eating cabbage leaves in my stir fry from April onwards, and I still am doing well with the cabbage in there. You remember the onions were an experiment there. I planted some of the smallest onions that I didn't eat over the winter time, and they did come up, and I have eaten several of them as green onions, so they were useful to plant, and I will definitely do that again next year. Although I found that I had accidentally left some onions in the onion patch last year, and they also came up, so big surprise. So I think what I'll do is I will deliberately leave some onions in the garden. Ugh, there's something crawling up my back. As I was saying, I think I will deliberately leave some of the smaller onions in the garden over winter and just let them come up on their own schedule. I don't think I harvested the ones in the hoop house any earlier than I would have harvested had they been outside. The fourth video was the compost bin. I put that in the hoop house, and that is a definite yes, definite success. I am 100% positive I was able to keep the temperatures above zero in the greenhouse as long as I was maintaining that pile. When I first set it up and I let it, and I kind of stopped monitoring it for a bit, and when I came back to it, it was cold, it had stopped cooking. If I remembered to turn it over frequently, say every 2 weeks, then it was always pumping out heat. When I first started it, you saw me use it as a hotbed for starting some plants too, and it was actually too hot for that. And the Tupperware container that I put over top of those plants just was so humid, it was over humid, and there ended up being mold underneath. So I would be interested in trying that where I actually have the plants, say, elevated a little bit above the bottom of the pile. And then maybe it won't get too hot underneath. But yes, definitely maintaining the compost pile inside the greenhouse was a way of generating heat for inside the greenhouse. We'll try it again. Another test you saw me try was putting a little mini hoop house inside the large hoop house. And I am inconclusive there as well. I think I just did a shitty job building the mini hoop house. When I was putting it together, I didn't seal it very well. I didn't make it convenient to open and close. So I will try it again. I'll just do a better job. I'll do a little more research before I build it. I did see a video from a couple who vlog from, I think it's Minnesota, and I'll try and put them in the description, or put a card if I can figure out how to do cards. And they have a big long hoop house, and on one side they built a shelf, and from the shelf they dropped a thick piece of greenhouse plastic. So rather than mine, where I was trying to go over those rounded pipes, theirs is just a straight down piece of plastic, which I'm sure makes it easier to have sides on. Square sides are certainly easier than my trying to close in those rounded sides. So I will probably go with that idea. It also seems kind of nice to have the shelf on top. I can see that being very, very handy. Something else this year was the raised beds. Now, this wasn't the first year that I had raised beds, but it is just the second. And I can say for sure I got things out here sooner than I would have. And I have a friend who was having trouble getting her garden turned over because it was just so wet. And I was out planting much, much sooner than she. So I did build some more this year, and I really expect next year that I will get an even better jump on things. So far, none of the potatoes in the Ruth Stout bed are up, but the ones in my container are super. They've been up for a while now and getting bigger all the time. You know, I was just about finished the video and I remembered there was something that I had not included in my list, and that was the box. The box gave me the opportunity to have a place in the hoop house that was protected, insulated from the coldest overnight lows, and it meant I did not have to cart those darn plants out every day and then back in every night. And that was a huge time saver. If there's anything about it that I'd like to improve, that would be to make it bigger. And then it was almost finished and I realized I hadn't filmed an outro again. But it gives me the opportunity to show you that I did weed my flower garden, thankfully. And there are buds on the peonies.